Hey, I think we're live. Okay. Welcome to episode one of the Realtors with David Blair and Trevin Perez. I'm David Blair with ERA Davis Lynn Real Estate. I'm a 25-year real estate agent. I've been in the business since 1999, I guess. Worked for a couple of different companies. I currently work for the ERA franchise. Spent most of my career with them. Spent a little time working for an iBuyer company, OfferPad, the last 3 years, and now back with ERA. My counterpart is Trevin Perez. I'll let Trevin introduce himself and tell you a little about himself.
Hey, thank you, Blair. Trevin Perez, I've been in the business since 2017, and I've bounced around a bit from traditional brokers to wholesalers to the prior 3 years at OfferPad and iBuyer. Um, that's it.
Cool. So why are we doing this? A lot of people are going to ask, why we're doing this. What do we hope to achieve? Trevin and I have talked quite a bit about different different podcasts, different realtor shows that we see that's out there. What we wanted to do was try to develop a podcast that was entertaining. Real estate, I think, you can admit can be pretty entertaining on a daily basis. Also give some good information out there and not misinformation. If you watch the Bravo network or you watch any of the shows that are out there, the $1 Million Listing, where you see the realtor jump in his car and the ka-ching noise in the background, and he's made all this money over a 5-minute transaction. That's just not the real world of real estate. So what we're hoping to share is some real world knowledge about the real estate industry. Wouldn't you agree, Trevor?
Oh, absolutely. I think you make a great point about it. It's a fascinating industry, and it's funny when you think about hanging out or going to a barbecue or spending time with family. Nobody asks how cousin Johnny, who's a plumber, how's business, or the lawyer, or this or that. It's always real estate. Hey, how's the market doing? Everybody cares about real estate.
Yeah. And it's the small things that you don't see in normal transactions. I spent yesterday, driving all over town, practicing what we call wheel estate, when you're going from area to area. And I've got this older gentleman who's a seller, a great guy, but just does not work well with technology. So I've made 3 trips to his home, which is about 45 minutes away, to do wet ink signatures. Because he can't work with dot loop, or he can't work things like that. So these are the things that we're kind of going to talk about that you don't see. We've got some questions. Some of these questions are some of the top questions that are currently out there about real estate. We also like to invite you to email your questions. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see our Gmail account. If you'll email your questions, we're going to respond to those every week. We'll take a look at those. This podcast is going to run every Friday at 5 o'clock. So we'll take a look at those the week before and hope to get your questions in there. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. So the first one right now is it a good time to buy a house? Trevin, you're up.
Hey, I think it's always a great time to buy a house. And when you look at today's market with high interest rates, the inflation is tight and it's bad too. And oh, by the way, we have an election year. So, just the culmination coming off of COVID years when it was a boom for sales. Now it's a little slow, inventory slow, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of great deals out there. And you just need the right type of agent and team on your side to help you find the right property and, that fits your needs, and you have to be flexible in what those needs are.
I get that point. I get that question a lot. And here's my take. Maybe it is and maybe it isn't, quite honestly. It could be, it really just depends on your situation. If you're a first-time home buyer and you're looking at interest rates that have doubled almost in the last 2 years, and it's beyond your affordability level, then quite honestly, maybe it is better to rent. You really just have to look and see. When I talk to customers and they ask me, okay, well, this is my budget, I only want to spend $1,200 a month. What does that get me? And I have to look at it for them honestly and say, okay, well, maybe you're in a better area renting in that price range than what you are if you buy, at what the home prices are at this current level. Having said that, I also do agree that the timing right now is critical, in that we came out of a market 2 years ago where there were multiple offers on properties. Cash buyers would always win. Appraisals were waived. Inspections were waived. We're not in that market anymore. So I think as a buyer, you've got some advantages. You can kind of take your time a little bit, and kind of make the right choice on the properties that are out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would just add, David, that one of the things when you think about a first-time home buyer, especially once they're 2 to 3 years in their home and they start thinking about investing, right?
Hmm.
A lot of our clients come back to us and think about investing. And so I like to go backwards and say, man, if you had flexibility when you were a first-time home buyer and in a situation where someone can't afford the full cost of that mortgage, those are the times when, if you were open to being creative, maybe you could have bought something that had, it was a duplex and you lived on one side, that whole Burr concept. I think that there's some opportunities when we collectively bring people together, because we are seeing multi-generational families buying homes, and just to get ahead because it's so hard.
Yeah, it's a good point. So number 2 on the list is, which is better, selling to an iBuyer, which is a cash buyer, internet buyer, or putting your house on the open market?
Oh man, I tell you, the easy answers is, if you have room to not take the full asking or the full listed value price, you bought it, you think it's worth 400 grand. Don't go to iBuyer thinking you're going to get 400 grand. That's not happening, right? iBuyer is going to give you bare minimums because they need room to be able to slap a coat of paint on it, put some lipstick on it, and then turn around and sell it again for maybe that 400 you wanted. So I think that your best bet is always the open market, and depending on your circumstances. What are you thinking, Blair?
Yeah, I think along those lines. I mean, so we both have experience in this. We both worked directly for, one of those companies at one time. We both worked for OfferPad. We saw the day-to-day requests when those offers would come in, and we still work in some of that, some of that business. What I see and what's funny to me is, I speak to these sellers every day, and, the first thing you get typically is, okay, we put a request in. Well, how much are you going to offer? Well, do I have photos of your house? Do I know what your house looks like? I haven't seen any of that. And it's a little, yeah, I think a lot of sellers are leaning towards what it was 2 years ago, and it's not that same market right now. So 2 years ago when things were flying off the shelf, it was easy to say, okay, well, how much are you going to pay me?
Right.
So right now, to your point, you have to look at, I think you have to start with market value, and you have to look and say, okay, if my house is worth, $300,000 on the open market, well, a cash buyer is not going to give you that. They can't. They're in the business to make money, period. You have to understand that going in when you contact any of those companies, whether it's an OfferPad, it's an Open Door, or any of the companies that are out there doing that right now. You have to understand they're going to make money on that. So, maybe you're in a situation where you have good equity in the property and you can do that. You can say, okay, well, I don't want to show the property. I don't want to run the risk of staying on the market for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever the case is. I want to be able to go ahead and dictate when I sell. Then maybe that works for you. But what I'm seeing now in the current market is just the opposite. I see customers they still have a good bit of equity in the property, but they're in that situation to where they're going to give up a lot. They're going to go from a 240 on a cash basis to where they could maybe sell that property for 300,000 on the open market. And I don't know why many people would walk away from $60,000. Do you?
Yeah, exactly. I think sheer desperation or potential foreclosure, short sales, you name it, right? But typically in that scenario, the home is in distress, and roof might be caving in. But gosh, can you remember those days of 21 and 22 when we would list a house and 2 weeks later it sold with 10 to 15 offers? Yeah.
And now you've got inventory that's I don't want to say sitting, because it's a little odd to say I've got listings that, I've got a condo that's been on the market for 17 days and the seller's contacting me and they're saying, should we make any adjustments? 17 days. I mean, we're talking about a little over 2 weeks on the market, and
Right.
they're ready to just shit can this whole thing because because we've been on the market for 2 weeks. I mean, we've had decent activity on it, but it takes a little time, and the interest rates are always gonna factor into that. So no, but no, good points. So to that, nice segue for the next question. What should sellers do if their home is not selling according to their expected time frame?
Yeah, I think that it takes a lot of education. It's so funny. You think about any business outside of real estate, plumbing, they're experts. We can attempt to do something plumbing wise, but typically, 7 out of 10 times you'll have a success, but more than likely, you're going to fail with a leak. Something's going to go wrong, right? But real estate is one of those businesses that everyone thinks Google is their friend, and they've watched enough HGTV shows that they could do it, right? So I would say that it comes with a lot of education. I'm finding myself on every bi-weekly basis, get on the phone, do a Zoom with my clients and say, hey, let's look at the market data and see how many days on market does it take for homes like yours to sell. And let's look at what is selling, or let's look at why certain homes went pending. And let me help you make determinations just based on the data, the same exact data I'm using, right? So it's not me blowing smoke, up your rear end, right? In addition, we're seeing, I'm seeing that in some areas, and depending on the price point, open houses don't really matter in this marketplace at 7.5% interest rates, right? So I kind of think that there's patience, right? Because on average that I'm seeing in the markets I cover here in Central Florida, homes are sitting on average over 100 days, bare minimum, right? And if they can't sell in the expected time frame, then let's look at some other options. Option one, let's rent the property. Can you afford to get out of the home and rent it? Option B, just sit tight. Just sit tight and wait for the market to improve, right? We're in an election year. Things are bound to happen. We're seeing that the CPI went down like 0.01, like what the, and so now there's hope that there's pressure on General Powell, the chairman of, the guy who controls the purse strings, right? That's a blooper there, guys. It has to come down. So if rates come down, that's going to make a difference.
So I had a broker. Well, my current broker, I say had, when I first started in real estate with him, he gave me some advice, and we were talking about different conditions of what sells real estate. And this has always held true throughout my entire career. It's price, condition, and location. And he told me, price, location. First of all, location is where it's at. The property's located where it's at. You can't change that. Price and condition, you can always make adjustments to. So if the property's in poor condition, you can improve it. If you can improve it, if you're a seller that doesn't have the money to put into the property to renovate it, then it's price. Then you ultimately adjust that price down. But I think you have to look at the property when it goes onto the market and price it according to what the comparables are out there that are telling you. Like I said, we just came off a market, a 2-year high, where you could almost just throw any price out there you wanted and it would sell, regardless of whether the house was standing or not. It would just sell. And we're not in that market right now. The listings that I see that are selling, that are moving quickly in that time frame, because real estate is always going to be geographical, are the listings that are in good condition. They show well, they're priced well. There's no functional obsolescence. They're just good properties, and they just kind of check all the boxes when you go in. So if you're not one of those properties, I think as a seller, you have to stay in touch with your agent, and you have to, like you said, you have to have those conversations on a weekly basis and say, okay, where are we at in the market right now? Where do we compare to everything else that we're competing with? And if you've got 10 homes in your area and and it's not even about being the lowest price. Sometimes it's about being competitive price wise, but it's just how you rank in those, in those properties. And it can vary. It can vary if you're in a subdivision, you're in a, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but if you're in a planned subdivision where a lot of the houses are comparable, you have to really look at your house and what does it offer over those other properties. Do you have updating? What's the condition of your roof? All of those things factor in, because you can pour a ton of marketing into a property that's not priced well or is in poor condition, and it just won't sell, period.
Absolutely.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. No, 100%. Yeah. I think we're laying out a lot of nuggets, and I think the bigger problem is sellers think they know more about the industry than those of us who are boots on the ground.
They know more because there's more information. When I started in real estate, our MLS system had literally just changed, and I think 3 or 4 years before that, before I came into the industry, the MLS was in books. It was actually in printed, like telephone books, to where the realtors had this access to information. No one else had it. Now you have Zillow that tells everyone what they think their house is worth. Trulia, which is owned by Zillow. But you've got all these different resources that are out there. But I've jokingly told a couple of sellers, I said, I can go out and watch a video on brain surgery. That doesn't mean I can do it. That doesn't mean I know how to do it. I mean, you have to have experience. You have to have gone through transactions to understand how to work with other agents, how to market the property. All those things factor in. So speaking of, one thing I've been getting a lot of lately, requests, and I know this is kind of in your wheelhouse, is our next question. So what is creative financing? Tell us a little about what creative financing is.
I think creative financing is a big crock pot, and you throw a lot of different things in there.
The crock.
Yeah, you stir it up and you get what you get out of it. Meaning, right? And by the way, I stemmed that I did know what I was talking about in the previous question. It is Chairman Powell, but it's Jerome Powell. For a second there, I was thinking about from the Bush administration, General Powell.
Colin Powell.
Where was I going with that? So yes, Jerome Powell. And inflation looks like it is headed back to that 2% target mark. So with that and the election, all is there's a lot of opportunities in the market. So let's see what happens, right? But back to the creative financing. So in a case of people needing to leave, right? So and you can't rent it or you can't stay put, then if you own a high amount of equity in the home, you can potentially do a form of a seller finance deal where someone else takes over your payments, puts a chunk of money, a sizable down payment in your pocket. There are deals like this happening every single day in this market. And I find that in this market climate, people are more open to these creative solutions. That's just one form of it, right? You hear a lot of communities on YouTube talk about sub-2 loans, which are subject to your existing mortgage. All of this requires a lawyer, requires you to do a lot of due diligence, right? We're not experts or legal representatives, right? We're realtors, and we can help you with a lot of these creative solutions. So I'll just leave it there because it's a giant crock pot, like I stated.
So interesting. I got an email. I got an email last night, and it was on one of my listings, and they were asking very, very similar to to what you're describing in regards to the creative financing. And they stated in the email they would pay the seller his equity. So I think what they thought maybe in that case was that he had a mortgage. So I have that particular seller owns that property outright. He doesn't owe a mortgage. So I did send them a response back, and I said, well, he doesn't owe a mortgage. I said, so his expectation would be that he would receive, full proceeds. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back with, I guess, in that. So, I don't know if that was their expectation, that, obviously that they're, approaching a property that's paid in full. So does it differ any?
I think that that's even a better scenario when they own the property outright, because then
Yeah.
your seller becomes the bank
Hmm.
and they're issuing a loan to the buyer with a percentage rate on the interest, a down payment, and a set amount of payments over a set number of years with a balloon payment.
Hmm.
And then that particular investor will hold that property for that time period. And if they don't flip that contract to another investor, they'll hold it
Hmm.
and then they'll balloon payment out to make your seller whole. But I think that when you have a seller who has no mortgage, it sky's the limit. It really creates a lot of opportunities.
Hmm. Nice. So speaking of opportunities, next question. And you have a lot of people in the market. We've talked about people that they say in the market of predictions of what what's going to happen in the next 12 months. So what do you think is more likely to happen in real estate in the next 12 months? Is there going to be a real estate bubble or a real estate boom?
Hmm. I think that there's a lot of pent up demand.
Mhm.
And I hate to go back to my food analogy, man. I think I'm hungry. But going back to the crock pot, right? You got the
Yeah.
top on there and you keep that pot boiling and it's bubbling and that pot is just moving and shaking.
Mhm.
Uh, we have a lot of pent up demand. So soon as rates start to come down from their
Mhm.
7% range,
Yeah.
you know, I think we're going to see more people hit the market to sell their home, and then buyers are going to be coming out in droves ready to purchase properties. That's my thought on it. So I think it's going to be a boom, a small boom, but definitely
Yeah.
not a bubble. We're nowhere near a bubble. What's your thought?
I think the same. I mean, I think I was talking with a lender the other day, and it's a lender that I've got about a 10-year relationship with, done a lot of business with them. And I asked them, I said, what are you seeing? Because, she was telling me, she's like, it's kind of slow. This is a few months ago. She's like, it's kind of slow right now. She's like, I'm doing a deal here, deal there, and I said, well, do you think it's all rate driven? She said, yeah. And I think that not that rates are going to drop back down to 5% in the next 90 120 days or after an election, because some of those changes can happen. But I think it's going to be like flipping a switch if the interest rates get back down into that range. I think it'll be slow and gradual. So I think, like you said, it's a kind of a little boom, if you would. I don't think it's going to be like it was 2 years ago, but I think gradually, as those rates go down, it's going to bring more people off the bench. They're going to come back in, and they're going to have some affordable housing, because the prices don't seem to be moving. When you look at overall prices, and I know we're in different areas. I'm here in Northeast Florida, but the prices are just not, they're not moving a whole lot. We're not seeing drastic changes with that. We'll cover that in some of the weeks to come, because I do have some thoughts in regards to how that pricing eventually changes. But I just don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna bottom out. So I definitely think we're gonna have a boom. So a couple of weeks ago, this next question kind of hits close to home. A few weeks ago, we're having dinner with some friends, and my wife is telling me about one of our mutual friends, and I said, yeah. So what do they got going on? She's like, well, she's closing on our house today, and I'm like, she's what? She's closing on a house. I'm like, I didn't know she was buying a house. She's like, yeah. Apparently she bought a property. So I felt some kind of way about it. I've done business before. So the question is, and I'll give you my thoughts after yours. Should you handle a real estate transaction for your family or friends?
Man, that's a tough one. I think going into the business, they say tell all your friends and family. You know,
Hmm.
um, it's a people business. So all your loved ones want to work with you. The reality
No, they
is,
don't.
the reality is, it's like so much harder
Yeah,
than one would think to work with friends and family. In the
yeah.
early years, I would find that family would bend me over and like twist me in different directions. I'm like driving all over God's country and I get nowhere. We're family. It's okay.
Mhm.
Cool, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the reality is, I'm always left holding the bag. And so what I learned the hard way was friends and family, I'm
Mhm.
cool with. Hey, peace to you. God bless. If I could help you, great. And most times I've noticed once I took that attitude, I still got screwed.
Yeah.
I still got screwed out of friends and family deals. I would say
Mhm.
that, I probably did 20% of the deals with friends and family, but I think that my peace of mind was worth way more of value to me in knowing that I wasn't fighting with cousin Jane
Sure.
or Uncle Mike over there about that transaction that
Yeah.
they left me in the dust holding the bag, or that they got some free advice and didn't think that my career required a form of compensation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hey, God bless him.
Yeah.
What's your
Ear-
take?
So early on, I think I've changed, and maybe I've just gotten older and wiser and more mature. Because early on, I would get offended if a friend or family member didn't use me. And a lot of times, my broker would say, well, hey, a lot of times you have to stay in touch with people because they forget that you're in real estate. I don't think that was the case with some of the family or friends in this instance. I think that they were in a situation to where they would, maybe this is a family or friend now calling me. They were in a situation. They were in a situation where, yeah, I wasn't top of mind with them. I mean, I wasn't their concern. I think that's the case with a lot. So early on, I would be bothered by it. As recent as this most recent transaction, um, I could really care less at this point. I mean, I'd love to do business with friends and family. Obviously, we don't want to turn away business, but at the same time, I'd rather have someone as a friend, and I'd rather have a family member that we don't have some awkwardness because they felt the transaction went a certain way than what I felt. Because usually that's what I find it is. We have a vision of what we think we're doing, and then when you hear the other side from a friend or family member, it's completely different. And they're like, you're thinking, you're like, man, did I really, did I do that bad of a job for you? I mean, I didn't think I thought I was really bending over backwards, and the other side doesn't see that. And there's an aspect to personal information. I don't think family members want to give out financial information to you and have you privy to all of their, uh, ins and outs of their finances and things like that. I think there's a little bit of a haterness in that too. I think friends and family can be a little bit of a hater where they don't want you to make money off of them. They look at it that way sometimes rather than you're making money to do your job. So, my wife was actually bothered by it more than I was. And I told her, I said, look at it this way. I said, we're probably the only industry that even applies to, that and maybe selling Avon, back in the days. I mean, of where you'd reach your Tupperware, where you'd reach out to your friends and family member kind of thing, and you do that. I think real estate, was built on some of those connections. But since then, I mean, I don't get pissed off at my dentist, I mean, or if I had a friend that was a dentist or a doctor, or
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't go to, I wouldn't feel any kind of way. So I think it's just our industry. So I'm just glad I don't have any friends that are proctologists or anything. It would be really awkward. So, you know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the last part, we're at the last segment, the last question, and this one's my favorite. So you've heard of the game, Kiss, Marry, Kill, right?
Absolutely.
So Kiss, Marry, Kill, first-time buyers, investors, or part-time real estate agents. Which one? Kiss, Marry, Kill.
Whew. That's cool. So I would say that I am marrying the investors.
You would.
That's Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know me. That is my lifeblood. I do a lot of investments. And so, yeah, investors, 100%. I'm going to marry. I will. This is a tough one. Part-time agent or first-time buyers. I guess I will kiss the first-time buyers. I will
Right.
kill the part-time agents.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I respect everybody's hustle, but I think in our industry, we have a predominant amount of people who come to real estate as part-time agents, thinking that you can hustle this. And I think real estate is such a jealous and attentive lover. You got to put 100% on her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Requires it. What's your
Um,
take?
so for me, Kiss, I'm gonna say the investor. Yeah, because I don't want a long-term commitment with the investors. I do some business with them, but there's no loyalty. So they're kissing a lot of other people. It's not just you. You know, they're cheating on you every single day. So there's, you know, I'll give you a nice kiss. We'll make out. We'll do a transaction, and then you go on your way. You know, that's all I got for you.
We need
Mary,
therapy.
Mary would be the first time buyer, I think, because I think with them, I've had a lot of first time buyers. It's a new experience with them. A lot of times they're not, you know, obviously first time buyer. They're, you know, never bought anything. They're not savvy to it. They trust your judgment, your guidance. So you can build a good relationship with them, kind of like in any marriage. And then I think they're going to refer people. Some of the best referrals I've gotten have been from first time home buyers that said, you know, hey, we had a great transaction with you. We're going to refer you to, you know, mom, dad, sister, you know, all of our family, friends, that kind of thing. So, and then kill, yeah, it's the part-time real estate agent. They're the lowest rung in our industry because they just give everyone a bad name. You know, I get calls. I got a call 2 weeks ago from an agent, and I ended up writing a contract because that agent was not on duty, basically. And you know, this business it's unforgiving. You know, yeah. My broker used to tell me, he said, you know, when you're on, you know, vacation or you're away, you know, you're on an appointment. You know, he said, because I mean, the industry is not very forgiving in that, you know, I get it. You know, we all have to have that downtime and vacation. But if you're a customer in this industry and you're looking for a home and you need to find something, you don't care. I don't care that Trevin's on vacation and you're in Cancun and you know, partying. I don't care. I care about my property. And that actually happened a couple of weeks ago. I actually benefited from it because that other agent wasn't available. Customer called me up and said, I said, well, where's your agent? Well, they're not going to be back until like Thursday or Friday of next week. And that happens. We all have downtime, but you just have to make, you know, those adjustments. So for me, the part-time agent just has to go away. I think it gives the industry a bad name, and I think it causes a lot of the criticism that we get, you know, in terms of, you know, agents don't work, you know, they don't work long hours. They show up, they pick up a commission check, and then they're done. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, good point. You know, what's your take, just to add on to that point? What's your take on the fact, and that's a whole nother conversation, the current NAR lawsuit? How is that going to affect these part-time agents?
I think they're scared. I think a lot of them that I've talked to are, you know, they're scared and running. We'll get into that. We'll get into that next week. It's going to be a big topic. It starts August, right? August 1st.
Yep.
Yeah, August 1st. There's new changes come out, so it's going to start. So, hey, I think we did good for the first time. What do you think?
I think so too, man. We got 33 minutes on the clock. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's 33 minutes of your pure gold knowledge, information that we're giving away for free. We're going to charge for this service, you know, later on down the road. So if I'm out there watching this, I want to get on this now while it's free, because we're probably in less than a few weeks, we're going to charge for this. We're going to have to charge for this information. It's too good, in my opinion.
Yeah, the events are going to be sold out, so you better get in where you fit in.
So the email, again, is at the bottom of the screen. It's TrevinDaveRealtors@gmail.com. Send us your questions. We're going to do this again next Friday at 5 o'clock. We're going to put this out there. Be glad to interact with you. We're going to have some upcoming guests on the show. We're going to bring someone in from all parts of our industry. We're going to do home inspectors, insurance agents, disgruntled sellers, buyers, you name it, you know, cats, dogs. We're going to bring the whole show in. So, okay. I'm good for now. We'll see you next week. Trevin, thanks again.
Have a great one. Take care.